I planned the perfect Thanksgiving dinner. Nobody came. Then my sister's post changed everything. So I took control and I'm Jenna, 28 years old, living in Seattle, and I've always been the one nobody quite notices in my family. I mean, I love my parents, my older sister Brooke, and my older brother Ethan. I really do. But sometimes it feels like I'm on the outside looking in, watching their lives unfold through a window I can't open. It's like they all have this secret language I'm just not fluent in, and no matter how hard I try, I can't quite catch up. For years, family dinners and celebrations happened somewhere else, at my parents' or Brooke's house. Never mind. I've lived in my house for almost 3 years now. It's not huge, but it's warm, and I've made it my own. I'm not messy or anything. I keep it tidy, maybe a little more laid back than my mom or Brooke would prefer, but it's comfortable. Still, when they visit, there's always some subtle criticism. Did you dust under the bookshelf? Or, you should vacuum more often, my mom says, her voice always polite but firm. Laura, Ethan's wife, chips in too, pointing out little things like a mother hen, like I don't take care of myself. It's like they expect me to live in chaos and then judge me for it. Every holiday follows the same routine. Everyone piles into one house, usually mom and dad's or Brooke's, and I'm expected to go along with it. When I bring up the idea of hosting, it's like I've suggested we all move to Mars. Jenna, you're so busy with work, they say. Your place isn't really big enough for all of us. I have a dining room table that fits 8 people comfortably, but apparently, that doesn't count for much. I've tried to brush it off for years, convincing myself they love me just in a different way. But this year, I was done pretending. It was one of those Sunday dinners at mom and dad's. The usual crowd, mom bustling in the kitchen, dad carving the roast, Brooke scrolling through photos of Lily's dance recital on her phone, Ethan chatting quietly with Laura. There was a lull in the conversation, and I decided to say it. I want to host Thanksgiving this year, I told them. The room went silent, like I'd dropped a bomb. Forks stopped midair. Brooke blinked, clearly caught off guard. Laura raised an eyebrow. Mom turned around, hands on her hips, and said, "That's sweet, honey, but Thanksgiving is a lot of work." You know the kind of voice that's trying to be supportive but doesn't really mean it? That's the one. I told her I could handle it. I've been cooking for myself for years. I know how to make a turkey, I said. Brooke laughed, but not kindly. More like a laugh that's just waiting for me to fail. She said, "Jenna, organizing a family holiday is more than just cooking the turkey. There's planning, timing, making sure everything comes together perfectly." I told them I was asking now, a month ahead, because I wanted to do it right. Dad nodded slowly and said, "If that's what you want, then go for it." But no one looked excited. Not really. They all sat there, exchanging those looks families give when they want to say, "You're making a mistake, but we're not going to stop you." Brooke gave a small smile and said, "Our holidays are always perfect." That smile didn't reach her eyes. It was like a warning wrapped in a compliment. "Jenna, you've never really organized anything like this before," she added, and it hit me harder than I expected. That was the truth. Nobody ever gave me a chance. Tyler tried to sound encouraging, saying, "We're not stopping you." But it felt more like he was waiting for me to mess up. Mom and Dad shared a look that said, "She'll learn soon enough." My cheeks burned. I felt like yelling at them all that maybe the reason my holidays never turned out like Brooke's was because I was never allowed to show what I could do. Maybe if someone had believed in me, things would be different. The room grew quiet. Then Dad said, "You're right, Jenna. It's your turn. We'll come to your house for Thanksgiving." Brooke muttered, "We'll be there," sounding like she was agreeing to a funeral, and Ethan nodded, "Us too." Laura smiled politely, but I could tell she didn't really want to be there. I could feel the weird energy hanging in the air, like they were humoring me, waiting for me to back down. But I wasn't going to. I wanted to prove them wrong. I was going to host the best Thanksgiving our family had ever had. For the next 3 weeks, I threw myself into planning like I was working on the biggest project of my life. I spent hours reading recipes, watching every Thanksgiving cooking video I could find, and making detailed shopping lists organized by store and timing. Fresh herbs 2 days before, turkey 3 days before, everything else a week ahead. I even hired a cleaning service to come the Wednesday before. My house had never looked better. Every surface sparkled. The hardwood floors gleamed. I wanted Mom and Laura to have nothing to criticize this time. I planned the menu down to the smallest detail. Turkey basted with herb butter under the skin, homemade stuffing with celery and sage, garlic mashed potatoes, and green bean casserole topped with crispy onions. For Brooke, I made sure to include her favorite sweet potato casserole with mini marshmallows on top. For Ethan, The cranberry orange relish he always raved about at Mom's house. And for Laura, the pumpkin pie she loved, made from scratch with real whipped cream. I even bought a new tablecloth and matching napkins and set out the fine china Grandma had left me, but I never used because I never had anyone special enough to use it for. This time, it felt special. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I posted in our family group chat, looking forward to seeing everyone Thursday at 2 p.m. Can't wait to share this special day with my favorite people. Within an hour, everyone had liked the message. Mom, Dad, Brooke, Ethan, Laura, and Mark. Seeing those little heart reactions gave me a warm feeling in my chest. Maybe they were wrong about me before. Maybe they were giving me a chance now. The night before Thanksgiving, I worked late into the night. Chopped vegetables, made the cranberry relish, mixed the stuffing, set the table perfectly, put out cloth napkins and the good silverware. Bought a fancy centerpiece with tiny pumpkins and fall leaves. When I stood in my dining room at midnight, looking at everything laid out so beautifully, I felt proud, really proud. This was going to be amazing. Thanksgiving morning, I woke up at 5:30 a.m. to start the turkey. I had mapped out every minute on a timeline taped to my fridge. The turkey needed 4 hours, the stuffing 45 minutes, sweet potato casserole 30 minutes. I put on my favorite green dress, the one Mom always says looks good on me, and did my hair and makeup carefully. If I was going to be the hostess, I was going to look the part. By noon, the house smelled incredible. The turkey was golden and looked like it belonged in a magazine. The sides were ready and warming in the oven. The table was set, candles lit, and everything was perfect. At 2 p.m., I stood by the door, heart pounding with excitement, waiting for the first car. But none came. At 2:15, still nothing. I checked my phone, hoping for a text, a call, anything. Nothing. I walked to the window, watching the empty street, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. The food was ready, the house spotless, and yet, I stood by the window, glancing at my phone again, hoping for a message, a call, anything that would explain why no one had shown up. The silence was deafening. I tried Mom's number, straight to voicemail. Same with Dad, Brooke, Ethan, and even Mark and Laura. Each unanswered call felt like another punch in the gut. My hands trembled, and a wave of disbelief washed over me. How could they just ignore my invitation? After all the planning, all the effort I'd put in, I was left standing alone in my perfectly decorated dining room. The turkey, now resting under foil, was beginning to cool, and the side dishes were still warming in the oven. I paced back and forth, biting my lip to hold back tears. Maybe they got caught in traffic, I told myself desperately. Maybe someone's phone died, or they thought the gathering was tomorrow. But even that hope started to slip away as minutes turned to hours. I sent a text to the family group chat, trying to keep my voice calm. Hey, are you all okay? I'm here and ready whenever you are. The only response was the quiet hum of my phone. I changed out of my dress, feeling the weight of rejection settle into my bones, and slipped into jeans and a sweater. I debated driving over to Mom and Dad's house, wondering if maybe something serious had happened and no one thought to tell me. But as I reached for my car keys, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was Brooke. She had posted new photos on Instagram. My heart stopped. My hands shook as I opened the app and scrolled through the pictures. There they were, Mom and Dad, Ethan and Laura, Brooke and Mark, and all the kids, sitting around Brooke's dining room table, smiling, laughing, enjoying the feast. The table was covered with turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, and every traditional dish I had spent days preparing. It was the same meal. My meal. The caption read, "Our family tradition continues with another beautiful Thanksgiving at our home. So grateful to be surrounded by loved ones." I stared at the screen, frozen, feeling my chest tighten and stomach churn. Our family tradition. Another beautiful Thanksgiving. At Brooke's house. Without me. I sat down on my couch and stared at the perfectly set table in my own dining room. The empty chairs, the untouched food, the silence. The shock slowly morphed into a sickening ache. I realized, with painful clarity, that this was how they had always seen me. Invisible, an afterthought, someone whose presence was optional. The invitations I thought I had sent had been ignored or quietly dismissed. My effort had been swallowed by a family unwilling to change. I thought about the way Mom and Dad fussed over Brooke's parties and Ethan's milestones, while my accomplishments were acknowledged with a brief phone call or a quick card in the mail. The elaborate birthday parties for Lily and Mia, complete with decorations and cake, while my own birthday barely warranted a mention. The way Laura took over cleaning when she visited my parents' house, but always found little things out of place at mine. For years, I had convinced myself that maybe I was just imagining it, that they loved me, just differently. But seeing those pictures shattered that illusion. They didn't love me the way a family should. They loved the idea of me, the sister who showed up, who never complained, who stayed in her place. I didn't call them. I didn't drive to Brooke's house demanding answers. I didn't send angry messages. Instead, I sat in the quiet of my empty dining room, letting the silence speak the truth I hadn't wanted to hear. When the tears finally came, I let them flow freely, mourning not just the holiday, but years of feeling invisible. The next morning, I packed up the leftover food with trembling hands. I filled containers with turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, and pies. I wrapped the cranberry relish and green bean casserole carefully. It felt strange to box up all the love and care I had poured into the meal, knowing the people it was meant for had rejected it without a second thought. I bundled the containers into grocery bags and drove downtown to the local homeless shelter. The volunteers greeted me with warm smiles and gratitude as I handed over the food. They talked about how many people this meal would feed, how special it was to have a real Thanksgiving dinner. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of peace, knowing that at least someone would enjoy what I had worked so hard to create. I left the shelter lighter, with a strange sense of closure settling over me. Back at home, I turned on the television and tried to distract myself with old movies. My phone remained silent all evening. No calls, no texts, not even a simple Happy Thanksgiving message from any of them. The silence was loud. It echoed through the empty rooms and pressed heavily against my heart. I wasn't expecting anything anymore, but the quiet hurt just the same. That night, as I lay awake, the weight of loneliness made my chest ache. But beneath the sadness, a spark of determination started to grow. I realized I couldn't keep trying to earn their love or approval. I needed to take care of myself. I needed to find my own happiness, away from the people who made me feel less than enough. The next morning, I called my boss and said, I need to take some time off. 2 weeks, starting Monday. I booked a flight to New Orleans, a city I'd always wanted to visit but never had the chance. Warm weather, vibrant streets, and a fresh start sounded like exactly what I needed. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not my family, not my friends, not even coworkers. I wanted to disappear, to breathe, to figure out who I was without the weight of their expectations. As I sat on the plane, sunglasses on, sipping a sparkling water, I felt lighter than I had in months. For once, I was doing something just for me. No invitations, no rejections, no empty seats waiting for people who never came. Just me, the open sky, and a chance to start over. The city welcomed me with a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Its vibrant streets buzzing with life, colors, and music that seemed to wash away the heaviness I'd carried for months. My small hotel room had a balcony overlooking the Mississippi River, where I spent hours watching the water flow, feeling each ripple carry away pieces of the pain I'd buried deep inside. The mornings began slowly, with coffee and a book, and the evenings melted into long walks through neighborhoods alive with jazz and laughter. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to fit into anyone else's story. I was simply being me, and it felt liberating. After a couple of days, I started sharing pictures online. Not the usual vacation snapshots, but carefully chosen images that told a different story. Me alone on the balcony with the sun rising behind me, a vibrant plate of Cajun food beside a single glass of wine, me standing under string lights in a quiet courtyard, smiling softly. Each photo was accompanied by the same caption. Our family gathered here for a perfect morning. It was a quiet echo of what Brooke had posted about Thanksgiving, a subtle mirror reflecting the truth she tried to hide. At first, the likes trickled in from distant cousins and old family friends, people who probably didn't even read the captions, but saw a pretty picture and tapped the heart button. Then the comments began. My cousin Sarah was the first to question, writing, "Wait, Jenna, where is everyone? I only see you in these photos." I replied gently, "Sometimes the whole family can be together and yet not really be present." Her curiosity sparked a chain reaction. Aunt Linda, who always seemed to sense when something was off, commented, "Jenna, honey, are you really by yourself?" Followed by, "Family's meant to be together, but sometimes that doesn't mean what we think." Other relatives started chiming in, confused and concerned. "Is everything okay? Why weren't you at Brooks for Thanksgiving?" The once private family fracture was now splashing out into public view, spilling into the comments section like wildfire. Brooke's name appeared almost immediately, her tone defensive and sharp. "Jenna, you're being dramatic and airing our private family matters online. This isn't the place for such stories. Her words stung, but I stood firm. I wasn't going to hide the truth anymore. The silence and the invisibility had gone on far too long. The tension boiled over when more relatives took sides, and the comment threads exploded into a chaotic mix of support and criticism. Some sympathized with me, calling out the family's coldness and hypocrisy. Others accused me of exaggerating or trying to create drama for attention. It was ugly, messy, and raw. The family drama laid bare for all to see. Meanwhile, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls and texts flooded in, mostly from family members demanding I delete my posts and apologize. I ignored most of them. Why should I silence my pain just to keep up appearances for a family that had ignored me for years? For the first time, I was choosing myself over their approval. When I returned home, the tension was thick in the air. It wasn't just the cold winter or the bare trees. It was the way my family looked at me, like I'd broken some unspoken rule. Then, one afternoon, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Mom, Dad, Brooke, and Ethan standing there, their faces tight with anger and disappointment. They pushed past me without greeting, making it clear this was a confrontation, not a visit. "Jenna, what is wrong with you?" Brooke demanded before I could even close the door. "You've embarrassed us all. Posting our family's private business online was cruel and unnecessary." Mom's voice shook as she added, "You need to delete everything and post an apology. Tell everyone it was all a misunderstanding." Ethan and Dad stood silent, but their expressions said enough. They agreed. I listened quietly, then calmly told them no. I wasn't deleting anything. I wasn't apologizing. They were the ones who should be sorry for ignoring me, for excluding me, for pretending I didn't matter. Mom stepped forward, voice trembling with frustration, warning, "If you don't fix this, we might have to distance ourselves from you." I laughed softly, the sound bitter and tired. "Distance yourselves? You already have. You've been doing that my entire life." Dad opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off. "When was the last time you helped me? When did you last show up for something important to me? When did I ever feel like I mattered as much as Brooke or Ethan?" They exchanged uncomfortable glances, silence filling the room like a heavy fog. "I'm done trying to earn your love," I said firmly. "I'm done begging for scraps of attention. If you want to distance yourselves, fine. Consider this goodbye." The room fell silent, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief. Mom's voice cracked as she said, "You don't mean that." I nodded, holding their gaze steadily. "I absolutely do." Brooke sneered, "You'll regret this. You're acting like a spoiled child who didn't get her way." I didn't flinch. "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally acting like someone who knows her worth." Ethan tried to calm things down, suggesting we talk like adults. I shook my head. "You made it clear I don't matter. So now, you don't matter to me." I held the door open and watched them leave, one by one. Brooke was last, turning back with a cold glare. "You'll regret this, Jenna." But I didn't feel regret. I felt free. The days that followed were quiet. Mom tried calling from different numbers, sent messages about family dinners and talks to clear the air. I ignored every single one. A care package arrived with a generic apology note, which I sent back unopened. Brooke tried texting from a friend's phone, calling me childish. I blocked that number too. Months passed. I celebrated my birthday surrounded by friends who actually cared, not the family that never showed up. Gifts arrived from my parents and siblings. Expensive, probably trying to buy their way back. I refused them all. This time, I was done chasing approval. I started therapy, slowly unpacking years of hurt and neglect. My therapist suggested family therapy might help if I wanted to rebuild those broken bonds. But honestly, I wasn't ready. Maybe someday. But only if they admitted what they did was wrong. If they acknowledged ignoring me, hurting me, treating me like I didn't matter. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to prove myself to anyone anymore. I was living my own story, surrounded by people who actually saw me. And that felt pretty damn good. I never expected my vacation photos to cause such a stir, but as soon as I posted the first image, everything changed in ways I couldn't have imagined. The captions I carefully crafted, echoing my family's own words back at them, began to catch fire among distant cousins and old friends. What started as simple likes turned into questions, comments, and eventually a heated online debate that dragged our family's private issues into the public eye. It was exhausting and painful to watch, but for the first time, I wasn't hiding. I was telling my truth. At first, the reactions were a mix of sympathy and confusion. Some relatives reached out privately, asking if I was okay and encouraging me to keep sharing my side of the story. Others accused me of trying to embarrass the family and warned me to stop airing dirty laundry. The comments on my posts became battlegrounds, filled with heartfelt support on one side and defensive backlash on the other. Brooke was relentless in her attempts to discredit me, accusing me of exaggerating and fabricating stories to gain attention. But I refused to be silenced or shamed into submission. The flood of messages was overwhelming. Family members called me over and over, demanding that I delete the posts and issue a public apology. The guilt trips started immediately, with texts filled with disappointment, anger, and pleas for reconciliation. I read each one with a growing sense of clarity. I didn't owe anyone an apology. My feelings were valid, and my voice deserved to be heard. Ignoring most of the calls, I focused on taking care of myself and embracing the support I found in new friendships and therapy sessions. Returning home felt like stepping into a charged atmosphere. The tension was palpable the moment I walked through the door. I could feel the judgment in every glance, every whispered conversation just out of earshot. Then one afternoon, they showed up unannounced. Mom, Dad, Brooke, and Ethan, standing together, storm clouds gathering on their faces. They didn't say hello or ask how I was. Instead, they pushed inside as if they owned the place, ready to confront me. Brooke wasted no time. Her voice was sharp, accusing me of betrayal and humiliation. "Jenna, what were you thinking posting our family's private matters online?" she demanded, eyes flashing with anger. Mom, her voice trembling but firm, added, "You need to delete everything immediately and apologize to everyone." Ethan and Dad stood silently, but their cold stares spoke volumes of their agreement. I listened calmly, knowing I couldn't back down this time. When they finished, I spoke clearly and without hesitation. "No, I'm not deleting anything, and I'm not apologizing. You're the ones who should be sorry for ignoring me, excluding me, and pretending I don't exist." Mom stepped forward, her voice cracking as she threatened, "If you don't fix this, we may have to distance ourselves from you." I let out a bitter laugh. "Distance yourselves? You already have. You've been doing it my whole life." Dad tried to protest, but I cut him off, my voice steady and strong. "When was the last time you helped me? When did you last celebrate something important to me? When was I ever made to feel like I mattered as much as Brooke or Ethan?" The room fell silent, the weight of my words settling like dust. They avoided my gaze, knowing I was right. "I'm done trying to earn your love," I declared. "Done begging for scraps of your attention. If you want to distance yourselves, consider this goodbye." The shock on their faces was unmistakable. Mom's voice wavered. "You don't mean that?" I nodded firmly. "I absolutely do." Brooke sneered. "You'll regret this. You're acting like a spoiled child who didn't get her way." I didn't flinch. "No, I'm finally acting like someone who knows her worth." Ethan tried to mediate, suggesting we talk calmly. I shook my head. "You made it clear I don't matter, so now you don't matter to me." I held the door open and watched them leave, one by one. Brooke lingered last, glancing back with a venomous look and saying, "You'll regret this, Jenna." But I didn't feel regret. Instead, I felt a freedom I'd never known before. In the weeks that followed, Mom tried reaching me from different phone numbers, sending messages about family dinners and talks to clear the air. I ignored everyone. A care package arrived with a vague apology note, which I sent back unopened. Brooke texted me from a friend's phone, calling me childish and telling me to grow up. I blocked that number immediately. Months passed. I celebrated my birthday surrounded by friends who truly cared, people who showed up when they said they would. Gifts arrived from my family, expensive, likely attempts to buy forgiveness. I refused them all. This time, I was done chasing approval that was never going to come. Therapy became a sanctuary where I unpacked years of pain and neglect. My therapist suggested family therapy might help if I wanted to rebuild those relationships. But honestly, I wasn't ready. Maybe someday, if they could admit what they did was wrong, acknowledge how they hurt me and made me feel invisible. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. I was living my life for myself, surrounded by people who saw and valued me. And that felt incredibly good. Months passed in a blur of new routines, therapy sessions, and small but steady victories. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was reclaiming myself, shedding the weight of years spent trying to fit into a family that never truly wanted me. I focused on my photography projects, spent time with friends who actually listened, and finally began to believe that my worth wasn't tied to the approval of those who rejected me. Life had a quieter rhythm, but it was mine, and that felt like freedom. I thought I had closed the chapter on the family drama, but life had other plans. One afternoon, While I was editing photos in my small studio apartment, my phone buzzed with a notification that caught me completely off guard. It was an encrypted message from an unknown number. I hesitated but opened it. Inside was a folder filled with emails, text messages, and screenshots of conversations between Brooke, Ethan, and even Mom and Dad. I sat frozen, scrolling through the documents as a wave of disbelief washed over me. The truth was undeniable. My family had planned my exclusion long before I ever mentioned hosting Thanksgiving. They had coordinated in secret, discussing how to keep me out of the holiday plans, suggesting excuses like pretending I was sick or too busy. Some messages were cruel jokes about how Jenna never really fits in, and she's better off left to herself. They even discussed how to spin the story to other relatives to avoid backlash. I felt my heart shatter with each line I read. This wasn't just neglect. It was a calculated decision to erase me from their lives. Anger flared hot and fierce, but beneath it was a cold, burning resolve. They wanted me invisible, but now I held the proof. I wasn't going to let them rewrite the story again. For days, I sat with the documents, organizing and rereading, fighting the urge to throw my phone across the room. Slowly, I began typing my thoughts and feelings, pouring everything out onto the screen. I wasn't writing to punish them. I was writing for myself, to reclaim my voice and tell the story as it truly happened. I decided to turn this painful truth into something meaningful. Using the messages as a foundation, I wrote a memoir filled with raw honesty about what it felt like to be the overlooked sibling, the one who desperately wanted to belong but was always pushed aside. I shared my journey of hope, heartbreak, and finally, self-acceptance. I posted it on a personal blog, not expecting much beyond a few sympathetic comments from friends. But the response surprised me. The blog gained traction quickly, resonating with thousands who had felt similarly invisible in their own families. Messages poured in from strangers, sharing their own stories of rejection, invisibility, and resilience. They thanked me for being brave enough to speak out, for shining a light on a painful truth that so many suffer in silence. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. My family, meanwhile, remained eerily silent in public. I received a few texts from them, vague and defensive, but no one admitted wrongdoing or asked for forgiveness. Their refusal to acknowledge their actions stung, but I knew I couldn't wait for them to change on their own timeline. I had to move forward without them. The real surprise came several months later at a local bookstore event where I was invited to speak about my memoir. The room was filled with people whose lives I had touched just by telling my story. As I signed copies and listened to their heartfelt thanks, my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. My heart raced as I opened it. The message was simple, but heavy. "I'm sorry." I sat there, stunned, the weight of those two words settling deep inside me. Who had sent it? Brooke? Mom? Ethan? Or was it someone else, someone I never expected to hear from? I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, wondering what to say. I didn't want to respond with anger, nor did I want to rush into forgiveness. So, I typed a message that was careful, honest, and open-ended. I thanked them for reaching out and said I was willing to listen, but that rebuilding trust would take time. Sending that reply felt like stepping onto unknown ground. I wasn't sure what would come next. Would this be the beginning of healing or just another dead end? For the first time, though, I felt ready to find out. The weeks that followed were filled with small, tentative conversations, texts and phone calls that never quite touched the past but hinted at a desire to change. I guarded my heart fiercely, unwilling to fall into old patterns of disappointment. I focused on myself, on my growth, and on building a future that wasn't defined by the pain of my past. Reflecting on everything, I realized how far I had come. I was no longer the invisible sister begging for attention. I was Jenna, the woman who found her voice, reclaimed her story, and refused to be silenced. The family I wanted wasn't the family I had, and maybe it never would be. But that didn't mean I was broken or unlovable. It meant I was finally free. And that freedom? It was worth everything.